Realm of Ruins. Chapter 4. Lyanna. The soft glow from the hearth cast golden light across the intricate carvings in the woodwork, and the silk tapestries sprawled over the marble floor. Outside, Royal Reach shimmered under the southern burning sun, a capital teeming with life, where the heat embraced all and never truly released its grip, even at night. The city pulsed with energy, the streets echoing with market cries, clinking horse hooves, and the laughter of nobles who seemed untouched by the wars that raged beyond their gates. Inside Lyanna's chamber, the air was thick and languid, as if the heavy drapes, which kept out the harsh daylight, had also trapped the accumulated warmth of endless sunlit hours. The fragrance of floral oils mixed with the faint, cloying aroma of incense and the musk of sweat created an intoxicating atmosphere of southern opulence and indulgence. Amid this luxurious haze, Lyanna lay sprawled on a grand four-poster bed, its deep red velvet canopy sheltering her like a queen's throne. Her long golden hair spilled across the silk pillows, a shimmering curtain that framed her glowing sweat-kissed skin. Between her legs a young serving girl knelt, cheeks flushed from more than just the heat, her breath warm against Lyanna's bare skin. Lyanna sighed softly, her fingers playing lazily with the girl's dark locks, a soft smile curving her lips. The pleasure shattered like glass when the door burst open, sending a wave of heat sweeping through the room and making the flames in the torches flicker wildly. Prince Leon stormed in, eyes sharp with frustration. His black curls were wild and sweat-slicked, framing a face that was a study in barely contained rage. He wore a deep crimson doublet embroidered with golden thread, the fabric catching the firelight and making his presence even more commanding. His gaze flickered from Lyanna to the serving girl, who sprang away with a gasp, fumbling for a sheet to cover herself. Her wide eyes brimmed with fear as she backed away, looking to Lyanna for guidance. "Out!" Leon thundered, his voice echoing with the authority of royalty. The girl didn't need to be told twice. With one last desperate look at Lyanna, who merely nodded with a serene, almost amused expression, the girl fled from the room, never daring to meet Leon's furious stare. The silence that followed was heavy, almost oppressive, like the unending southern heat. Lyanna raised an eyebrow, her irritation mixed with a touch of humor. She sat up, every movement graceful and deliberate, as if even her brother's fury, Kino, couldn't disturb her composure. She made no effort to cover herself, her golden hair cascading around her like a sunlit veil. "Leon," she drawled, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "to what do I owe the honor of this dramatic entrance? Have you forgotten how to knock?" Her lips curled into a smirk, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of annoyance and faint delight at his obvious distress. Leon's boots struck the marble floor hard as he stepped forward, fists clenched at his sides. His face was a mask of fury and disappointment. "You disgrace our name, Lyanna," he spat, his voice cracking with anger. "Parading around like some shameless noble's daughter with no sense of duty, no thought for the consequences." Lyanna rolled her eyes, swinging her legs over the edge of the bed. "Oh, spare me your sermons," she sighed. "You sound like one of Father's old advisers. Might I remind you, dear brother, that you are no saint yourself? I've seen the women who slip into your chambers at night. Or is it easier to vent your frustrations on me because you feel so powerless yourself?" Her words cut deep, and Leon's jaw tightened, the color rising in his cheeks. He was used to command, to unquestioned respect, but Lyanna had always been the exception. She was wild, untamed, her spirit defying any attempt to be caged. Leon's frustration seemed to burn even hotter than the air around them. His voice grew rougher, his words slicing through the thick, perfumed atmosphere. "Father is to marry again," he snapped, disbelief and fear warring on his face. "A new queen could change everything. Our influence, our place in this city. It could all be swept away in an instant." Lyanna tilted her head, a trace of genuine interest flickering across her features. Her smirk softened, though it didn't vanish entirely. "Oh, Leon," she murmured, standing and stretching with a languid grace. "You worry too much. Do you really think any woman, no matter how powerful, could alter our fate?" Her voice grew quiet, almost conspiratorial. "Power isn't given, brother. It's taken." Leon's dark eyes burned with unspoken fears, but he knew he couldn't reach her. Lyanna was like fire itself, beautiful, mesmerizing, and impossible to contain. His fists clenched, frustration simmering beneath his skin, but he was helpless to control her. Lyanna brushed past him, her movements as fluid as a dancer's. At the door she paused, her smile turning cool. "Don't let the heat melt your mind, Leon," she said softly. "You need clarity, not fear." And with that she swept out of the room, leaving him standing there, his heart pounding with a mixture of anger and dread. The flames in the hearth crackled, and the heavy, unyielding warmth of the capital pressed in, suffocating and relentless. Lyanna moved through the palace corridors with a regal grace, her bare feet whispering over cool marble. The hallways were adorned with tapestries depicting the history of their house, grand battles, noble conquests, and scenes of prosperity under the southern sun. Her crimson gown, hastily donned in the morning's rush, shimmered faintly in the sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows. The fabric clung to her form with elegant precision, the golden embroidery at the hem swaying with each measured step. As she turned a corner, she came upon a balcony overlooking the royal gardens, a lush expanse of greenery brought to life by the tireless work of the city's best gardeners. Here flowers bloomed in impossible colors, and fountains sparkled under the relentless sunlight. It was a sanctuary, a place where the noble women of the court whispered secrets and plotted their intrigues. Lady Mariel, one of Lyanna's so-called friends, lounged there now, a fan of peacock feathers shading her delicate porcelain face. Her eyes lit up with feigned delight as she saw Lyanna approach. "My dear princess," Mariel cooed, her voice a honeyed poison, "I heard quite the commotion from your chambers. Has Prince Leon been scolding you again?" Lyanna offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Leon worries too much," she replied, leaning casually against the stone balustrade. "He forgets that this city was built on ambition and sin. A little indulgence never hurt anyone." Mariel's laugh was soft, practiced. "Indulgence, perhaps. But even you must have heard the rumors." Her voice lowered conspiratorially. "About the king's new bride-to-be, Lord Flores' daughter, if the gossip is true." Lyanna's smile tightened. "I've heard. A convenient match, don't you think? Marrying into the house that feeds the entire kingdom. Our dear father has always been clever that way. They say everyone who is anyone has been invited," Mariel murmured, her fan brushing against her chin. "Even Lord Balon and his sons." Lyanna's heart skipped a beat before she could catch herself. "Coria's coming too?" she asked, her voice betraying a flicker of surprise. Mariel's sharp eyes didn't miss the flicker in Lyanna's voice, subtle though it was. She tilted her head, studying her friend with a knowing smile. "Yes, his sons. Cori and the other one. Boris, is it?" Lyanna didn't answer, keeping her focus on the vibrant green of the hedges below. where the gardeners trimmed and shaped them into flawless symmetry. It was safer than meeting Mariel's gaze. "Corey," Mariel mused, her voice lilting, as though tasting the name. "Wasn't he here one summer when we were younger? I remember everyone whispering about how much trouble he was. Handsome trouble, though, if I recall correctly." Lyanna turned then, her smile easy and breezy. "He was handsome enough, I suppose," she said with a shrug. Mariel laughed, but her eyes lingered on Lyanna with just enough suspicion to make her uncomfortable. "Handsome trouble has a way of staying with you," she said lightly before changing the subject, moving on to speculate about the wedding plans. Lyanna let her speak, but her mind drifted far from Mariel's chatter, carried back to that golden summer when everything had seemed alive with possibility. She had been so young back then, an age of restless curiosity and newfound power over the way others looked at her. Her father had invited Lord Balin and his sons to Royal Reach for the summer, a gesture of loyalty and alliance. The court had been abuzz with their arrival. Lord Balin, the fierce black bear, and his sons, each rumoured to inherit a measure of his strength and cunning. Corey had been different from what she expected. Where his brother, Boris, had been stoic and disciplined, Corey had a wicked grin that seemed to suggest he found the entire world amusing. His dark hair was always slightly dishevelled, his clothes never quite as neat as they should have been, and his eyes, sharp, teasing, and maddeningly self-assured, had unsettled her in ways she hadn't yet understood. The first time they spoke, it had been in the stables. She had been brushing down her mare, her sleeves rolled up, when he wandered in, all lazy confidence and curiosity. "Isn't this a bit beneath a princess?" he'd said, leaning against a post with that infuriating smirk. She'd shot him a glare, refusing to let him see how his presence had flustered her. "Perhaps you should find something else to do if you're so concerned about royal propriety." He'd laughed, the sound rich and unrestrained, and something about it had made her stomach twist in a way that wasn't entirely unpleasant. "Fair enough," he'd said, stepping closer. "But tell me, Princess, do you always put people in their place so easily? Or am I just lucky?" Over the weeks that followed, they'd gravitated toward each other in stolen moments, brief exchanges in the gardens, shared glances across the dining hall, conversations that danced between teasing and something deeper. It was during a lazy summer evening, when the heat had driven most of the court indoors, that everything had changed. It had been Corey who kissed her first, but it was Lyanna who had deepened it, pulling him closer with a boldness that surprised even her. The garden had seemed alive around them, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant chirp of crickets, the soft glow of lanterns casting dancing shadows across the hedges. They had stumbled deeper into the garden, into the shadows where no one would find them. Beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak tree, the world had seemed to shrink to just the two of them. His hands had been warm against her skin, his touch hesitant at first but growing bolder as she encouraged him. She had given him everything that night, her youth and her trust, her curiosity outweighing any fear. And when it was over, they had lain together in the grass, the stars overhead a silent witness to their shared secret. She hadn't thought about that summer in years, not since Corey had left Royal Reach with his father. The promises they'd whispered to each other swallowed by time and duty. She had told herself it had been nothing, a summer flirtation, a childish mistake. But the truth lingered like a ghost, persistent and unshakable. And though she wouldn't admit it, not even to herself, she felt a spark of anticipation at the thought of seeing Corey Balin again. Thank you for tuning in to Realm of Ruins. Don't forget to like and follow to keep the story going.